If you could just take your seats, that would be great. Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ann Malone, and I serve as the first Vice President of the League of Women Voters of Ridgewood. On behalf of the League, I want to welcome everyone to tonight's Candidates Forum. We would like to begin tonight's forum with a flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Elections and voting are core concerns for the League of Women Voters. The League is committed to providing factual information about issues and the candidates' positions on those issues to help voters make their own decisions and to participate in the process. Our goal at the local, state, and national level is to promote informed participation in government in order to impact and improve public policy through nonpartisan advocacy. Our reputation for nonpartisanship and fairness is something that we take very seriously. The League never aligns itself with or supports or opposes any political party or candidate for public office. A few quick notes before we begin. Early in-person voting begins next Saturday, October 29th, and runs through Sunday, November 6th. The closest location for Ridgewood is Bergen Community College. Please visit our website, lwvridgewoodnj.org, at our Voter Services tab. That's lwvridgewoodnj.org. If you would like to visit us at the League of Women Voters, our next general meeting is tomorrow, October 20th, at 12:30 p.m. at Village Hall on Maple Avenue. Feel free to drop in as a guest for a meeting. All are welcome, including men, non-citizens, students age 16 and up, and non-Ridgewood residents. We ask that everyone please refrain from using the League name, logo, or any photographs or footage from the debate in campaign materials. Any such use has not been authorized by the League. Please also turn off your cell phones. Our moderator tonight is Ms. Kathy Mick. Ms. Mick is a member of the Northern Valley League of Women Voters and is a trained moderator. Ms. Mick will introduce the candidates and explain the forum for tonight's debate. She will also adhere to a strict time schedule in order to ensure fairness. We ask that you provide her and the candidates with courtesy and respect. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. I'm Kathy Mick, as Ann said, and tonight is your Village Council Candidates Forum, and we have Ms. Knudsen, we have Mr. Van Gore, we have Mr. White, and we have Ms. Winograd. And they will begin with opening remarks, which will be 1.5 minutes, and then we will follow with questions, 2 major questions, and then there'll be time for rebuttals. Yes, ma'am.
May I just like to ask you to please speak into the microphone because I don't think anyone can hear you. I certainly can't hear you. So much better. Thank you.
Hear me, so they're like, please quiet down. Is that better?
Oh, so much better. Thank you.
Anyway, do you want me to repeat names, or is everyone all set with your candidates' names? Okay. We're going to start with the opening. I had the candidates select the order of presenting their opening remarks. When I arrived tonight, they were all lined up with their cards, and then they picked their numbers, and guess what? Turned out to be these cards. So everyone's in where they're supposed to be. So the opening remarks will begin with Ms. Knutson and follow through along the line up here. The closing remarks will be in reverse. So we'll start with Ms. Winograd at the end of the evening, or the closing remarks. Also, when we start with the first question, we will jump to Mr. Van Gore. So, and as Tigers and I keep a little chart so everyone gets their turn. And so we'll begin with Ms. Knutson. So opening remarks, please.
Very good. Thank you. Residents, pay close attention to this election. Vote Knutson and Van Gore. This current campaign for council, for at least some, have been years in the making. The social media barrage of misinformation has left some of our residents confused. My efforts to correct have been greeted with a delete button. Two candidates appear to be hiding their previous support for the overdevelopment of Ridgewood, something I've always fought hard against. During my 8+ years on Village Council, I've helped thousands of residents and countless local businesses with everything from missed trash collections, leaf pickup, to helping with emergency family situations and welfare checks, flooding and erosion, and zoning issues. As mayor during the pandemic, I worked directly with the governor's office to secure thousands of vaccines for Ridgewood residents. I helped to keep restaurants and businesses open, worked with the school district to facilitate a 2020 high school graduation ceremony, and made sure public safety was never compromised, even during the protests, and still managed to finish a new master plan preserving Ridgewood's future for future generations. I've made the tough decisions, not always popular, but the right decisions for Ridgewood. Don't rely on slick marketing and subjective phrases like keeping Ridgewood's charming character designed to garner your support. Vote for proven leadership, vote for a proven track record, vote for Knutson, and vote for Van Gore. And visit voteridgewood.com for more information. Thank you.
Mr. Van Gore, you have 1.5 minutes for your opening remarks.
I'd like to thank the League, everyone here, and everybody watching. I've spent most of my life as a Ridgewood resident. I grew up here, attended Ridgewood schools, and served our community for 35 years on the Ridgewood Fire Department, the last 12 years as the fire chief. I have worked with every village department, and I know how to get things done when problems arise or residents call. I've worked on countless municipal budgets and participated in village budget meetings and hearings. I understand how to keep your taxes under control. I currently serve on the Ridgewood Planning Board and Site Plan Committee. My understanding of local land use and related laws will provide an important perspective when serving on Village Council. I've served on stigma-free and welcome to Ridgewood committees and volunteered with Feed the Front Lines. I was part of the village emergency team efforts for the pandemic, flooding, and major disasters. I bring important and relative experience, a collaborative spirit, and proven leadership. On the Village Council, I will focus my attention and problem-solving skills on the issues which matter most to our residents, and I will ensure you have a strong voice at Village Hall. I will work hard for you every day. I am asking for your support and your vote for Van Gore and Knutson.
Thank you. Mr. Weitz, your opening remarks, you have 1.5 minutes.
Great. So first of all, thank you to the League. Thank you to everyone attending here in person and virtually. So Ridgewood is a wonderful place, but quite candidly, we can just do better. And I want to talk about a couple of things that I want to focus on when I'm on the council. So first, we need to revitalize our downtown, and the first step in doing that is bringing back our pedestrian plaza. The second thing we need to do is to protect the character of Ridgewood and guard against overdevelopment. We're all stewards of this great community, and I want to make sure that whoever the next residents of Ridgewood are inherit just as beautiful a place as those of us who live there now inherited when we came here. Now, I am the only candidate who has a proven track record of both success in the private sector as well as the public sector. I spent over a decade as a federal prosecutor in New York and New Jersey, where I brought some of the biggest cases the Department of Justice brought in this area. I led some of the and I will bring that same fight to the Village Council when I get here. Now, prior to that, I started my career in the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, where I fought for victims of domestic violence and other violent crimes. I'll bring that same sense of passion and justice to the council. I also have experience getting results in the private sector. Currently, I'm a managing director in one of the largest banks in the world, where I oversee a large compliance team. I'll bring that same financial expertise and leadership to the council. But most importantly, I'm a father and a husband. Together, my wife and I are raising 2 kids in this Ridgewood school system, and if elected, I'll be the only member of the council with kids in the Ridgewood schools. I'll also be the only member of the council who knows what it's like to commute into Manhattan on a regular basis. I want to give back to my community that my family and I call home, and it's for that reason that I'm respectfully requesting your vote on November 8th.
Thank you. Ms. Winograd, you have 1.5 minutes.
Thank you. So I, too, want to thank the League. I know this isn't easy, and I'm very... You can hear me? Now? Good. It is on. Green light's on. Okay. Joan, can you hear me?
You're better now.
Okay. Okay. Thanks. I, too, want to thank the League. I know this isn't easy, and I'm incredibly appreciative. I want to thank the public and the people watching at home. My husband and my mom are here, so thank you to them especially. I'm running for Ridgewood Village Council to be an engaged and independent voice for the residents of this great village. Like so many of you, I want our community to move forward on vital issues that we all know have lingered for too long, such as the pedestrian plaza, our maintenance and shortage of parks and fields, the Shedler property. I want to improve Franklin Avenue, including the town garage site, and improve our village budget process, adding extra transparency. I'm also looking to improve and change our approach to antiquated communication. My proven track record of initiative, collaboration, and accomplishment in our village's civic arena, along with my years of active citizen participation in local governance, leave me prepared to hit the ground running. And I will work hard. I love Ridgewood. I work hard for it as a citizen, and I will work even harder as a member of this council. Ridgewood is a smart, thoughtful, vibrant community. I was born and raised here, as was my mother. And my husband, Mike, and I moved back here to raise our 2 children. I want what's best for Ridgewood, and I will always put the interests of our community first, something that has not been happening lately. Vote for me, Siobhan Winograd, this November.
Apparently, the audience is having trouble hearing us, so when you speak, we need to speak closer to our mics. So that's all of us, especially me. Does everyone hear me now? I used to be a cheerleader. I've got a big mouth, but I'll behave tonight. So thank you, Ms. Winograd. We will start with the first question, and that will go to Mr. Van Gore. And I will read the question. In these turbulent times, there are many difficult issues affecting your village. What are the first 3 priorities you would address if elected or re-elected to the Ridgewood Village Council? And I'll start with you, Mr. Van Gore.
The first priority for the council will be the next budget. We're going to start to see the impact of inflation on municipal operations this coming year. I will be committed to keeping the tax increase to under 2% and still maintaining village services. I will use my expertise to maintain the financial stability of the village. I am very familiar with the budget process and how to effectively use shared services and equipment purchasing with neighboring towns. I also understand the complicated grant process, having applied for and received over $1.5 million in grant money. Another priority will be to revitalize the Central Business District by promoting events that will continue to attract more shoppers and diners. I understand Mayor Knudsen and Council are adding improved parking garage signage and have been upgrading the tree wells and sidewalks. I will continue with those efforts. A challenge facing the village will be limiting development and maintaining the small town village feel. Also to complete eminent domain process of the Franklin Avenue Town Garage to allow for cleaner environment for an improved parking lot and a new Franklin Ave Park.
Thank you. Mr. Weitz, you answer the same question. You have 1.5 minutes.
You know, when my wife Jen and I moved to Ridgewood, we came here for the vibrant downtown and the sense of community and character. As I go door to door and meet citizens, I notice that that sense of vibrancy in our downtown has really faded under the current council. We need to fix that. We need to bring back that vibrancy. The first step is going to bring back the pedestrian mall, which during COVID closed down sections of our central business district to allow restaurants and businesses to operate in the street. It brought a tremendous sense of community to the village residents. It was probably the only good thing to come out of COVID, or one of the only good things to come out of COVID. It was also a boon to our local restaurants and other businesses who saw expanded foot traffic and expanded seating capacity, and was just all around a wonderful thing. Summit, Red Bank, and other towns have done it. Ridgewood should continue to do so as well. We also need to protect the character of Ridgewood. You know, communities are always going to change, but any new development in the village must be carefully measured against the community's needs and preserving why so many of us moved here in the first place. I will fight to protect that character that so many of us came to Ridgewood for. We also need to be better stewards of our tax dollars. Shedler should have been done years ago. There should be a field for our kids to be playing on right now, something that is much needed. I will also go through the budget line by line to make sure that we're getting the most for our money without compromising resources. We also need to demand more of the village. You know, as I'm driving in from Glen Rock or Paramus into Ridgewood to come home, I don't need to see the Welcome to Ridgewood sign to know I'm here. As soon as I enter Ridgewood, the car starts to shake from all the potholes that I start to hit as soon as I enter into Ridgewood town, into the Ridgewood Village. Again, we need to fix that sort of thing, and that's the type of thing I will do when I'm on the Village Council.
Thank you, Ms. Winograd, and you have a minute and a half.
Thank you. My campaign, Winograd 2022, focuses exactly on 3 challenges. First, I will address overdue improvements to our central business district by restoring the pedestrian plaza, removing the deadhead meters, which are unsightly, and simplifying parking and signage. 2, I will move to expand and improve our park system by moving forward with the opening of Shedler and developing a flood mitigation system as well as a flood plan for our fields. It's amazing to me that after all this flooding, we still seem surprised when it occurs. And 3, I will revamp our antiquated communication system by restoring hybrid access for our council meetings and creating a more informative and user-friendly website. Added to that, I will ensure that we produce prompt minutes and agendas for the public. While these issues and opportunities are important for Ridgewood, I do believe at this point they're the most critical. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidates have an opportunity for rebuttal, 1-minute rebuttal, if anyone is interested.
Student didn't go.
I'm sorry?
I still have a turn, don't I?
Oh, I am so sorry.
My bite at this apple. Don't deny me my bite at this apple, please. All right,
Please
so I'm
forgive
good.
me. I'm marking myself, giving myself a bad star on my
It's all
Yelp.
good. It's all right. We're patient up here. You be patient with us. We'll be patient with you. It's all good.
Yeah, thank you. Anyway,
So
please.
great. First, I'm going to say that Chief Van Gore said it beautifully. We do have some difficult days ahead of us with budget. However, I am alarmed to hear 2 council candidates speak about things they have no clue about. More than 50 businesses, retailers, and services signed a petition to say they can't survive if the pedestrian plaza is reinstated. They cannot survive. This turbulent time looking forward is for businesses who cannot survive downtown if the pedestrian mall or the dining corrals are reinstated. It is irresponsible of these 2 candidates to sit here and make these statements without consideration to the implications to our local businesses who pay rent, who have put their life savings into businesses whose livelihood and rent come from their businesses and their transactions. To sit here and be so irresponsible without knowing the implications of that effort is ridiculous. The pedestrian mall was a pandemic strategy to help restaurants stay open. The businesses agreed to do it, understanding that they would have issues to make their ends meet. But they did so with the understanding, with an agreement, with a commitment to restore the Central Business District to pre-pandemic conditions once the pandemic passed. This should never happen, and I'm sad. And by the way, I just want to tell Mr. Weitz if he's hitting any potholes, he should call the county because that's probably Linwood Ave. He may not realize that most of those really bad roads are
Thank you, Ms.
county roads.
We have now we have the opportunity for rebuttal. Excuse me?
Did they want me to answer the question? That's my answer.
that was
Turbulent
her answer.
times.
That was her answer.
I'm going to ask the League of
That was-
Women Voters to call
Excuse
for
me.
a point of order and decorum in the audience. To have people sitting here laughing out loud and shouting and yelling is really inappropriate and unacceptable.
Well,
Thank
I
you.
was practicing my manners, and I didn't
know,
want to
thank you.
interrupt you.
Thank you. It's fine.
So I would appreciate if everyone all join in, and we'll put on our best manners. I promise you. I'm a teacher's kid, so I understand what it means to sit still and behave yourself. And so let's start with anyone would like to have a rebuttal for question number 1. And the rebuttal timing is 1 minute. Mr. Weitz.
Thanks so much. So listen, I don't understand how foot traffic actually hurts retailer and restaurants. I've spoken to numerous businesses, and virtually every single one of them found the pedestrian plaza to be an economic boon for them, as well as our residents. Facts are stubborn things. I'd love to see this petition. I mean, this is new to me. And again, the Guild supports it. Every business out there that I've spoken to supports it. And the fact that there are a handful that maybe didn't like it, we should work with them to figure out ways to limit any negativity on them. But at the end of the day, it's a failure of leadership that we can't get done. Summit's done it. Westfield's done it. Red Bank did it. Why would we not want to do it? Additionally, in terms of a commitment that we made to these businesses, I'd ask again, where's the resolution? Who made a commitment? Who was empowered to speak on behalf of the entire village council and the village residents that said that this was only going to be a temporary measure? I don't think that ever happened. And again, facts are stubborn things. I'd love to see that.
Thank you. Ms. Winograd, you have a minute for rebuttal.
Thank you. So I want to echo and agree about the budget point. And I also want to point out that of the four of us sitting up here, I'm the only member up here who has effectively reduced the budget annually by $65,000 through the One Village, One Vote petition. That $65,000 was listed on every budget, and no one ever thought to address it until a group of citizens and myself addressed it. So I agree the budget is a problem. I especially agree because last year the current council delivered a 4.3% increase to the village, and that's just obscene. And two of the five council members felt that there wasn't enough information publicly available to affirm the budget. Added to that, I'm not sure if there's a petition, but I think that goes to the point of communication. If there is a petition, it should have been made on public record. And back-channel communications with the council are something we should look to avoid. If the pedestrian plaza has a counter-argument, it should have been made on the record. And I think when we talk about these things, communication needs to be on the record and in front. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, do I have a rebuttal?
Yes.
Thank you.
You have 1
So
minute.
Ms. Winograd should
Ms.
check her
Knutson,
math.
Ms. Knutson, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. Ms. Winograd should check her math. She may have saved $50,000 a year in election costs out of the budget, but what she doesn't share is that in the very last budget that was defeated by the residents of Ridgewood, I cut $700,000 out of that budget every single year, moving forward in perpetuity, compounded by whatever the tax increase is. That $700,000 is more than 10 times her $50,000, and that money could have been spent without disenfranchising thousands of Ridgewood residents, by the way, with less than 20% of the statutorily required signatures on a petition to move the Board of Education election. The biggest question tonight is how Ms. Winograd pulled that off. Thank you.
Successfully.
I would really like to have the audience please try to remain quiet. It really is not necessary, and we really need to maintain proper decorum in the meeting tonight. Thank you. So try to hold back. We have now the question number 2, and I will read it. I'm sorry. Your recently adopted or soon to be adopted master plan, not Marshall Plan. That might be an option. Master plan highlights the importance. You can laugh at that joke because that was mine. The importance of environmental sustainability and has recommendations to mitigate the adverse effects of climate change. Which master plan recommendations do you think would have the greatest impact on addressing flooding and storm management in Ridgewood? And we will begin with Mr. Bites, please.
Sorry. So listen, the master plan was a great start, and it's a really nice job as well. I commend the community members who participated and got that master plan together. But at the end of the day, it's just a roadmap. It's a guide. It's going to be up to the next council to decide which recommendations for the master plan we implement. Now, there's going to be way too many to cover in the time I've been allotted, and I'd ask everyone take a look at the green building and sustainability elements of the plan, specifically the stormwater management piece for some of these ideas. On a personal note, every time it rains, my kids' soccer practice gets rained out. This is an issue that's really near and dear to my heart. A couple of things that stuck out for me. First, we need to continue to plant more trees. In addition to being aesthetically beautiful, trees absorb water, which helps with flooding. I'd also look at pocket parks and what little vacant land we have left, again, as a way to absorb the water whenever it rains. I also want to use grant money to buy out private property that frequently rains. There's a program called Blue Acres, which I would very much be interested in. We could turn that into green space, which again would act to absorb water. Also want to partner with the state and county as well. Our former mayor, Ramon Hache, did a wonderful job with the duck pond and getting that fixed up using county money. That's the type of collaboration we need that I think we haven't done enough of. And of course, there are a few other ideas in there that are just wonderful, include expanding the historical district outside of the central business district so we can designate more properties as being historical, and that way they can't be overly built up. That will further tax our environment. Recycling bins in the CBD and the lower business district also sound like a great idea. And also we need to make sure we focus on creating safe, active spaces for things like pickleball, which again is an environmental issue as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Winograd, question number 2. You have 1.5 minutes.
Thank you. So when I'm not volunteering in town, my day job is I work for a sustainable children's clothing company. When the master plan was finally released, and I do think the release took quite too long for the public, I was relieved to see its commitment to sustainability. And I thought there were some really good things in here. However, it did beg the question during the 5 years of developing the master plan why we weren't acting concurrently to be more aggressive with our sustainable approach in Ridgewood. Local efforts can have a huge impact on climate change. As a council member, I will take meaningful steps to promote tree planting, not only by the municipality, but also by residents and businesses. I, too, will explore Blue Acres, expand our open space, and reduce impervious land through proper zoning and planning to reduce flooding. And the flooding has really affected our community to the detriment. I will encourage more walking and cycling every day, and this would be a bonus to the pedestrian plaza, which not only serves eating and drinking, but reduces emissions because people actually walk. There's other things that we can discuss about the site contamination on the Franklin Ave, and I want to make sure that everyone understands the best way for us to combat climate change is act locally, and I'm deeply committed to this. So the master plan was good. We should have been acting faster.
Thank you. Ms. Knutson, you have 1.5 minutes.
Great, thank you. So one of the things the village has been involved in since I was mayor in 2016 has been one of the most robust tree planting programs, restoring the village tree canopy. We have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on restoring our tree canopy. We continue our efforts with sustainability and flood mitigation through the reduction of impervious coverage. We did that even through the reduction of impervious coverage where driveways were being pulled up so that people could get bigger houses. We address all of these things in code. But one of the things I want to point out is it appears Mr. Weitz doesn't understand that the duck pond doesn't belong to the village of Ridgewood. There's no collaboration between the village of Ridgewood and the Bergen County to restore the duck pond. The duck pond belongs to Bergen County. While it's still our taxpayers, it is not the obligation of the village of Ridgewood to restore the duck pond, which, by the way, was in a state of disrepair for years and years and years. I thank the Ridgewood residents who responded to the survey that I posted in 2017 for restoring the duck pond. The village residents of Ridgewood pushed the duck pond to top priority by responding to the survey to restore the duck pond. That's what happened in 2017. And again, the duck pond does not belong to Ridgewood. It is not a collaborative expenditure with the Bergen County and the village of Ridgewood. It is not ours. It was Bergen County's responsibility to restore it, and it's finally happened. Thank you to Ridgewood residents.
Thank you, Ms. Knutson. Mr. Van Gore, you have 1.5 minutes to answer question 2.
The science is clear. Our climate is changing. This has resulted in flooding becoming an ongoing issue in the village, especially from the Hohokus Brook and the Saddle River. As a retired fire chief, I know firsthand what damage flooding does to the village. I find that one of the causes of flooding is debris getting caught under the bridges, causing water to back onto properties. The village won a federal grant to stabilize the banks and remove debris, sandbars, from certain locations in the Hohokus Brook and Saddle River. I will take the necessary steps to institute a maintenance schedule for cleaning and desilting the streams and sewers. I will also continue to advocate for a robust tree replacement budget. The village's charm is influenced by the street trees and tree canopy. Among the many environmental advantages that trees offer are improved air quality, cooling during intense heat, and aiding with stormwater management. Along residential streets, in parks, and in pedestrian-friendly places, trees also offer aesthetic benefits. As a planning board member, I have worked with builders and homeowners to replace trees, reduce impervious ground coverage, and increase stormwater retention ponds. We all need to do our part to reduce the effort of climate change.
Thank you. Is there a rebuttal? You have 1 minute for rebuttal of question number 2. Ms. Winograd?
So I just want to address some statements that, yes, the Village Council did commit to the Shade Tree Committee at the back end as this election approached with a significant investment in trees. However, this past Village Council deforested Ridgewood at the greater rate. So what that effectively means is we took down more trees, and then at the nth hour, we decided to plant a whole bunch of trees, not acknowledging that we deforested Ridgewood. Now, that's not a rumor, that's actually a fact. Second of all, I feel that the Shade Tree Committee, this goes to communications, is a wonderful committee, and they advocated for so long, and they were absolutely ignored because for years, the council was tone deaf to these issues that led to the frequent flooding. So I just want to make sure we all know that, yes, a lot of trees were planted, but more were cut down.
Thank you. Rebuttal, Ms. Weiss, you had your hand up?
Oh, sorry, me?
Yes.
Yeah. So listen, the biggest source of flooding in Ridgewood is the Hohokus Brook, which flows through numerous towns throughout Bergen County. The duck pond is a wonderful example of where the county came through and fixed something that sits in Ridgewood and was for the benefit of Ridgewood residents as well as all of Bergen County. It's a perfect example of the way that we need to work with county, state, and federal authorities if we really want to tackle flooding. The water doesn't care if it's flooding Hohokus, Lodi, or Ridgewood. And if we're going to be serious about fixing this problem, or at least trying to temper it as the climate changes, we need to work with the county on the waterways that roll through us and use that same spirit of communication, transparency, and cooperation with our federal state partners that we saw with the duck pond if we're going to address flooding here in Ridgewood.
Thank you.
Rebuttal here? Oh, go ahead, Jim.
I was just going to talk, all our fields, all our parks are in flood zones. The only two that aren't are Habernickel and Shedler. The Hohokus Brook does go past all our fields and all our parks, and it's designed to flood. That's what they're there for. They purposely lowered the field at the high school to make it flood easier, to alleviate the towns downstream. So I don't know how you could fix the flooding, plus they're Board of Education fields. So I don't know how the village would be able to spend the money to fix it anyway.
So
thank
now
you.
I'm going to rebut also.
Yes,
Thank you.
you have a minute.
So great, thank you. So yes, the chief said it beautifully, Chief Van Gore, thank you. The DEP controls that issue, but we did recently get $265,000 to desnag and desilt the Hohokus Brook. We're constantly working on flood mitigation efforts along not just the Hohokus Brook, but the Saddle River, which also floods notoriously. I did want to point out that I suppose Ms. Winograd was not paying attention during those village council meetings. The reason trees were removed was due to an emerald ash borer, which infested so many of our village trees. They had to be removed. Ms. Winograd should pay attention before she talks about deforestation. It never happened. We have planted more trees in the village of Ridgewood than anywhere else. And for the record, our downtown tree wells have also been corrected by the removal of the cement bands, the brick bands going around, so the new trees will be planted and will be able to survive. So I really hope people pay attention to what's being said here, because not true. Thank you.
Thank you. And we now have those questions, the prearranged preview questions are finished. Now we're going to have questions that have been written and submitted on cards. And do you have any you want me to read first? Does anybody else in the room have cards you want to submit to the table here? Or we have lots here, but we don't want to leave anyone out.
First last question. Wow.
All right, well, again. These are questions that have been submitted by you, and so I was asking if anyone still had a card in your hand that you would like to submit. You can do it now. Okay? Okay. Just one moment. Okay. Some of the questions, of course, are repeat questions. So I was just asking my question organizers, who do not belong to the Ridgewood League, but they're not residents of Ridgewood. So I just want to explain that. And I'm sorry, I misunderstood that. So some of the questions, of course, are repeated, so they've condensed them. So this is the first question. And this will be for Mr. Van Gore. No, right? No, I'm sorry, Mr. Weitz. Thank you. Just have to get my...
No, I think it's me.
No, you answered the third on the rebuttal for the second question. No? I'm wrong? My rub review.
I'll do whatever I'm told. How about that?
Coin.
Here is the question that can be now for Ms. Winograd. Going forward, what is your plan for the Shedler house? Am I pronouncing that correctly? I'm not a local. Okay. The larger property, specifically, how do you plan to use the house for the benefit of residents? And you have, I'm sorry, just 1 minute, and I will tell you. You have 1 minute to answer the question, Ms. Winograd.
So Shedler fits into two of my themes, both parks and communication. So the first thing that I'd like to do is let everybody in this community know what's going on with the Shedler house. Personally, I don't know. There are no pictures posted online. The website doesn't detail the status of the house, and the grant that applied appears to assume that the village taxpayers are just going to pay for Shedler, and there would be no revenue generating. I'd like to change that. I'd like to keep the house historic and look at potential sources of revenue, such as we have with the Gatehouse in Habernickel. Second of all, I think we need to let the community know what's going on. The website is antiquated, outdated, and there's a general sense that Shedler is stuck within the community. I know that some people with this election have decided to say it's not, but the Shedler house has received a disproportionate amount of funding, and yet with all the flooding that we all agree has occurred, Shedler is on high, dry land, and we failed to develop the park. My plan would be to publicly disclose what is actually occurring at Shedler and then move forward with the plan so our kids and adults can read the benefits of the Shedler development.
Thank you. Ms. Knudsen, would you like to answer the question? I'm going to go back and go back.
So I just couldn't really hear you. The question is specific to the house?
I'll repeat the question. Also, we have a minute to re-answer, and then we have rebuttals that are 30 minutes.
Go ahead.
Going forward, what is your plan for the Shedler house, the larger property? Specifically, how do you plan to use the house for the benefit of residents?
Sure.
And the other questions included, and you answered a lot of that, is how long the work would take until the field is ready for use, when will work begin on the sports field, and what is the purpose of the very expensive, in my opinion, house renovation? So these are all the questions about the Shedler house.
I'll do the best I can. So great. So the Shedler property, actually, we developed a plan in 2017. It was adopted and modified in 2018 and 19, and the SHPO received the plans for approval. And because of COVID and some other issues, there were some delays. I worked with SHPO to trifurcate the application to make certain that it could move forward much more quickly, which has happened, fortunately. So we trifurcated that application, allowing for different parts of the project to move forward. The house will be used for, actually, there have been a number of inquiries about the use of the house, so we look forward to, once it's completed, to looking for a suitable tenant or whatever kind of use will be. And the property is actually currently actively being developed, and we anticipate that the sports field will be finished by, I guess, the spring of 2023. I don't know what everybody's talking about. Again, we get to that social media misinformation, nonsense. The property is actively being developed. Thank you.
Thank you. Any of the candidates would have 30 seconds for rebuttal.
Oh, do I get an answer?
Yes, of course.
Oh, I'd like to answer the question.
Yes.
Jim, do you want to go?
Yes, and I'm sorry, every question that I read, each candidate has the opportunity to answer. And also, each candidate has the opportunity for a 30-second rebuttal.
Okay. Jim, do you want to go? Or you?
Yeah, I think the Shedler property is a much-needed park on the east side of town. I think once it's complete, it will be beautiful. It'll just be like Habernickel, but on the east side of town. I would work with the community to create a consensus on what should be in the house. I guess like a Historic Preservation Commission, something along those lines, or if we could rent it out. But without finishing it or coming up, we'd have to come up with a plan.
Thank you. Mr. White?
So we've owned that property for 13 or 14 years. We're millions of dollars over budget. It should have been finished already. It's a failure of leadership that that property is still sitting vacant right now when kids should be playing on it, and the house should have a use already designated for when it gets done. To me, part of the problem was that we focused on the house exclusively when we really should have been focusing on the green space. The playground is supposed to be there, and the field for our kids. Again, I think if I'm on the council, that project would have been done already. Again, it was a failure of leadership. It needs to get done according to the plan that was agreed.
Thank you.
Oh,
How is the
rebuttal?
timing? We all set with that?
I'm sorry. I think Siobhan had rebuttal.
You each have the opportunity for a 30-second rebuttal on this question.
Do you have a rebuttal, Susan?
Well, you can go first.
You can go first. I
Oh,
went first
sure.
last time.
So I hope you're not going to let them handle your tax dollars, because Mr. Weitz doesn't even understand that nobody's over budget. There have been $5 million spent. $3 million of it is through matching grants, and there's $7 million allocated for the restoration for the final project. It also 13 years. The project was only finalized in 2018. So I think we had Habernickel for more than 10 years before it was actually finally done. It takes time to do these types of big projects. It's important, but it's really important to understand what's being said here. More misinformation. There is no over budget.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have another decision.
Oh, do we have more?
I have one rebuttal to that. Okay, thanks.
Planning
Sean,
ahead.
you want to go next?
Go ahead, Ms. Vinograd. You have 30 seconds.
So I just want to point out some obvious things. The facts in the village website say differently. The plan that was approved in 2017 was changed twice with 2 secret submissions to SHPO. That's a fact. The website indicates those. Second of all, since the plan was approved in 2017, nothing has happened. And what we need to talk about is what benefits the collective, whether it's the pedestrian plaza or this field. There is no doubt that the single thing that would have benefited the largest cross-section of the community is the field. Yet, a disproportionate amount of money was spent on the house. Facts don't lie, and if you haven't updated the website, that goes to communication.
Thank you.
Oh, do I get the rebuttal as well?
Yes.
Yeah, again, I'll go back to, as John Adams said, facts are stubborn things. They don't change. It's over budget. It's 13, 14 years in the making. It should have been done already. The village residents deserve better.
The second...
The only thing I have to add is Habernickel took 10 years and almost $8 million. So if you're going to compare it to that, it's not over budget.
Everyone rebutted?
Can
We
can
can't
I
rebut
rebut
a
again?
You can't
No,
rebut the rebuttal.
No second chances on the rebuttals. We're going to move on. This next question is about housing. And we will answer, the first question will be answered by Mr. Van Gore. You will answer the first time, and then, and you have a minute and a half. No, you have 1 minute to answer this question. This is, we do not have enough housing for older people, disabled individuals, or those with limited incomes. And that's part 2 of this question is, given how successful, this is about multiple family housing, given how successful multiple family housing has been to date, where do you stand on further such developments? That's a lot to answer in 1 minute. Please.
Well, recently United Way just built housing on the corner of Maple and Ridgewood Ave. Up on the 2nd floor, they built housing for disabled people. I would work with them, try and locate more properties that they could use to develop to make physically, challenged people houses. Also, Valley Hospital. Hopefully, we can work with them if they decide not to leave at a hospital, whatever their decision is. Maybe we can put something there. But I think just working with United Way and trying to find places that'll work.
Thank you. Mr. Weitz?
Yeah, so if you listen to the master plan, one of the things that the residents really echoed was the desire to have housing that was multi-generational. So in other words, not just housing for people with young families, and also housing that allowed folks to age in place so that we can keep some of our senior population here in the village. Unfortunately, there's virtually no vacant land left in the village. We're largely fully developed. I'm committed that any new development, first, we'll have financial concessions from any developer for any property, and of course it must match the character of the village. But secondly, and just as importantly for this question, we have set-asides for housing for folks that are disabled, folks that are older, so we make sure that we have a real diversity of people in this village.
Thank you. Ms. Winograd?
Sure. So in 2016, our community really experienced a large discussion in housing, and unfortunately that conversation was oversimplified, polarized, and divided, in my opinion, at the expense of elderly and handicapped people. My father was disabled, and one of the main reasons I engaged in that conversation is, as a multi-generational daughter, my main desire was to see my parents and their friends and many long-standing members of the community remain in town. I don't think we handled that conversation responsibly, and I feel that the council turned their back on the aging in place process during that. I do feel, however, that Ridgewood is fairly built out, and we need to be mindful that when we build housing, we need to really value the commitment to keeping people in place, particularly those who are getting older, have lower incomes, and who are disabled. And sadly, this past council didn't handle that conversation with grace or dignity, and a lot of those people were ignored.
Thank you. Ms. Knutson, you have 1 minute, please.
Great, thank you. So as the person who negotiated all of the affordable housing after the litigation occurred in 2016, I can speak with great confidence on this topic. Number one, I spent actually 5 years on the Board of Adjustment prior to being on Village Council. At that time, we were pressing for more aging in place affordable housing for seniors. One of the things I requested from the previous Village Council that pushed through the high-density multifamily housing was to incorporate in the ordinances that the affordable part, the affordable component, 15% set aside, be allocated 50% and 50% to developmentally disabled and senior citizens affordable. But the then Village Council majority who pushed that through for their developer friends rejected that notion. Subsequently, I did negotiate an outcome that put all of the affordable units at the old Seal Funds building, and we worked with United Way and Madeline Corporation for the first time ever to deliver developmentally disabled, both supportive and independent housing right here in Ridgewood. Thank you.
Thank you. We have 30 seconds rebuttal time for this question. If any of the candidates wish to take time for rebuttal. Ms. Winograd, you have 30 seconds.
Okay. There's many things with keeping people in place, not only just giving them shelter, but then treating them with dignity. We need to stop calling it multifamily housing and simply call them neighbors. That being said, there's other initiatives that I've never seen the council participate in. I've never seen them participate with Ridgecrest, in not all council members, but ones running for office now. I've seen them turn their backs on initiatives like Toiletry Tuesday, which collects basic essentials for those who are older and in need. In general, we need to do better with this. Retaining our elderly population is critically important. Another one big thing that we did last year with keeping people out was the pickleball debate, which I'm sure will come up more.
Thank you. Any other candidates wish to?
Yeah.
Ms. Knutson, you have 30 seconds.
Ms. Winograd should pay close attention. We just worked out a project with Ridgecrest, and they had a change of management, and I believe it's a pilot, but we worked out a program with them, and we worked very closely with Ridgecrest. I just want to say, in terms of Toiletry Tuesday, last year in the height of COVID, the Chamber of Commerce and I worked hand in hand to make sure that Ridgecrest was addressed, and all of our senior, not just Ridgecrest, but our other elderly folks. We did a collection of toiletries and lots of products for them. So I'm not sure how this equates to handling your taxes or anything, but we've been very sensitive to the needs of our elderly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I get a rebuttal on that as well?
Yes, go. You have 30 seconds.
Great. So, when I first started thinking about running, I went down and met with some of the pickleball folks. Wonderful people, largely an older population within Ridgewood. They were badly mistreated by this current council. At one point, the pickleball courts were actually padlocked. Finally, I think we got to the right place, but we got there through a lot of just vitriol and nastiness that just had no place in Ridgewood. Again, if we're going to call ourselves a welcoming place for some of our older senior citizens, we need to embrace things like pickleball, but also embrace things like transparency and giving those folks a voice in Village Matters.
So he changed the topic. Do I get to rebut that?
I'm sorry, what was your question?
There was a topic, like a total shift gear in topic. And
That's all right, that was his answer.
I'm sorry?
That was his rebuttal.
No, I'll get it after. That's fine. Thank you.
We have another question. And also, I have to remind you, you don't have to answer these questions. It's up to you as candidates to answer the questions. So I know I can call on you, but if you'd rather not, or you feel you've answered it within another question, you don't have to take that time. So this is the number 3 question. Many residents cannot attend Ridgewood government meetings in person for various valid reasons. What is your position on hybrid access to council meetings? And if we want question, Ms. Knudsen, if you want to answer that question.
Is that to me first?
Yes.
Oh, sure. So first, the Village Council never had hybrid meetings. We had Zoom meetings, once again, in the height of the pandemic, and it was our job to make sure that everyone remained safe as village government. But as we discussed, allowing for a hybrid format, we ran into a couple of challenges. Some part of that is because we do hold public hearings once a month, and the opportunity to participate in public hearings in a hybrid setting was just not something that could be facilitated. Village Hall is fully accessible. I know there was one candidate up here who believes that hybrid meetings would increase transparency. Quite frankly, I have a Village Council member up here who looks at his watch every meeting and also is constantly texting. He supported hybrid meetings as long as we shut down public comment by cutting it by more than 80%. There are too many challenges, and I really believe that people should come to Village Hall and participate. Everybody's here tonight, so if you're here tonight, you should be at Village Council meetings. You should all be at Village Council meetings. And to cut public comment to allow for hybrid access is really denying the public opportunity.
Thank you. Mr. Van Goor, would you like to respond to the question?
Yeah, I guess this is one place where me and the mayor disagree.
You have 1 minute to disagree with her. You have 1 minute to disagree.
Oh. All right, I'll start over. All right, lost my place. Oh, I'm for hybrid council meetings as long as they're legal. I feel it's a way that we can be more inclusive. We can make hybrid meetings work by getting more people involved. Residents are still worried about COVID, or they're disabled. They can't get to the meetings. Whatever reason, they'd rather be home. They could call in. This way, they'll still be part of the council meetings, and they can still be involved. I'm not for Zoom meetings, but I'm for hybrid meetings and people calling in.
Thank you. Mr. Weitz, would you like to answer this question?
Absolutely. So in the spirit of togetherness, I agree with Jim. Listen, I can go to the Board of Education meetings for my children via Zoom and hybrid. Virtually every meeting for my job and virtually all people who work in business, there's a Zoom or a hybrid option. Why we're not doing that for Village Council meetings is really beyond me. It increases transparency, it increases democracy, it increases the ability for people to have a say in their Village Council. Why would we not want to do that? For folks that are disabled, for folks who are older, for people who have young kids at home, to say that we're going to make it harder for you to participate in democracy, to me is just the wrong decision.
Thank you. Ms. Winograd, would you like to answer that question?
I would. It's ironic to me that after saying we support disabled people within our village, that we would even think of shutting off hybrid access. Hybrid access is absolutely, I agree with Jim and Evan, a must. It is representative of good governance. And not only do the three of us agree, but I believe the League of Women Voters took a staunch position on this and issued a letter. One story that I heard during the hybrid access discussion was sort of beautiful, and I want to retell it. That when COVID first happened, all of us were locked in our homes. We all went back, and for many of us, our worlds became shuttered. For those who lived in the disabled population, COVID was door opening. There are people who are living here in this town who've never been able to join a college board, participate in a meeting here because of their handicap and their disability. So if we love disabled people and we support them through housing, we should make these meetings not the bare minimum of the building. We should make them accessible to all. I really, this is very important to me, obviously. We need to make sure that when we say we're inclusive and welcoming and all these things matter,
great.
we need to ensure that we act accordingly.
Thank you.
So I would like to rebut.
Yes, you have 30 seconds for
Great,
rebuttal.
thank you. So there's always the legal challenge, but again, it was something that the Village Council discussed. It does not increase transparency. It does do nothing for transparency. Now, while I do agree that we should allow some hybrid access for members that are disabled, the question that arises is that Ms. Winograd actually came to a Village Council meeting and said do hybrid because her kids were home in their pajamas eating cereal and watching TV and wanted to call into Village Council meetings to say hello. So if we're going to get serious and say, yes, let's do this for members who are of our community who are disabled, then that's fine. But please let's not make something
Thank you.
change our course here.
You have another question?
So can I rebut that? I think I had my response. I get a rebuttal.
Yes, you have a rebuttal. You
So
can,
just
30
again,
seconds.
sticking to the facts, that wasn't me who said that. That was actually a member of your access committee. My kids don't eat cereal in their pajamas. Sorry. So that's for my kids. Two, I think this is a very important issue in your reaction. We have lawyers. We have a lawyer. The legal aspect is this of not of counsel to question, but legal to define. And if it's illegal, why is the Board of Ed doing it? We need to be more pragmatic in our discussion. We need to be fairer in our discussion and more factual, especially when discussing elderly and disabled people within our
Thank you.
community.
Thank you, Ms. Winograd.
Oh, I have a rebuttal as well.
Yes, you have 30 seconds.
Yeah, I'll agree with Siobhan on this. I mean, the Board of Ed does it, so clearly it's not illegal. Other towns do it, so clearly it's not illegal. So I don't think that that's a legitimate argument. But moreover, there shouldn't be a litmus test for participating in democracy. You know, when I met some of those pickleball folks who are quite older, to tell them that in the middle of an ice storm or a snowstorm in February or March, they need to show up at Village Hall and, you know, and potentially some of those meetings go to 11, 12 o'clock at night, and to tell them that's what they need to do in order to have their voices heard, I'm not willing to tell them that.
Thank you. We have another question, and it's Mr. Van Gore will answer this question if you want to. You don't have to. Ms. Knudsen, I call on her. All right. The health barn is the topic. The health barn has been in the local news for years regarding leasing of village facilities. What are your thoughts regarding the health barn and the work it does for the community?
Is that to me? Am I leading off
Yes,
now?
it
So,
can be to you.
I'll be clear. I'm a health barn supporter. I've been there. I've met with some of the folks there. It's a wonderful thing to have on village property. They're a great tenant. There's a great example of perhaps what we should have thought about at Shedler before we built the house or fixed the house. There we have a tenant in a house providing a wonderful service to so many folks in the village. Feed the Front Lines is headquartered out of there. A wonderful program that, again, has enriched our businesses, enriched our citizens. To me, Health Barn is a real success story and something that I very much support.
Thank you. Ms. Winograd, would you like to answer this question?
Yes, I would like to. I'm a big fan of Health Barn, not only a fan, but a user. Both my kids, while not eating cereal, attended Health Barn. And we've used it and enjoyed it. I've also had the luxury of partnering with it with the disabled and elderly population through things like the Elder Dinner and working with Ridgecrest. And added to that, Health Barn, with respect to the budget, provides a lot of value. Not only does it provide this wonderful service, but it offsets your tax dollars because Stacy, in addition to good works, pays our village rent. We own that building, and she pays rent to it. And then we cannot forget to mention that in addition to this, the Health Barn Foundation, during COVID, kept our Main Street from being shuttered by pumping $4 million into the Central Business District through the Feed the Front Lines. I'm incredibly proud of Health Barn. I think it makes Ridgewood special, and I would only be looking to support an expansion of programs like this, such as the Shedler House, where it could generate some revenue, provide a service, and soften our tax dollars.
Thank you. Ms. Knutson, would you like to
Sure.
respond to
First,
Health
I
Barn?
stand corrected. They weren't home eating cereal. They were doing their homework, but it was Miss Winograd
Okay,
who
we've
called
heard,
in.
I think I've
And
upped
in
to here
terms
with
of
the
Health
cereal.
Barn, in terms of Health Barn, I just want to say that I served on the Board of Adjustment for 5 years prior to being on Village Council, and this was a change of use for property as a business. That said, I did just sign a 10-year lease. It was my obligation to sign, and it was a 10-year lease for the Health Barn to be there. I will point out that once again, these people are asking to have control over your tax dollars. Ms. Winograd should pay better attention. Health Barn actually in that location was a negative to the village of Ridgewood. It actually cost us more because the property requires us to pay property taxes, upgrades, repairs, snow plowing, shoveling. All of those things cost the Ridgewood taxpayers. So I think we had 1 year break even. Hopefully at some point we'll see some profit, but thus far there's been no profit from Health Barn renting that space. That doesn't make any, it's an adorable program, it's a cute program, but we've not seen any significant funds coming in from Health Barn. It's actually been a net negative for Ridgewood taxpayers.
Thank you. Mr. Van Gore, would you like to answer this question?
What was that?
I said you can answer. You're ready. You want to answer this question?
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to say I think Health Barn's a great part of town. When I was on the fire department, we received a grant to redo the gym, and it included a nutrition element to it. I went to the Health Barn. She set up a whole program so that we could bring the firemen up there, and they took nutrition classes. I delivered for Feed the Front Lines. I know they helped the restaurants a lot during the COVID, so I think Health Barn's a great thing. I don't know if we need 2 of them. I think just 1 would be enough.
Thank you. Any rebuttals on this? You have.
Yeah, thanks so much. I mean, I would not refer to Health Barn as being cute. During COVID, Feed the Front Lines saved a number of our restaurants, fed a number of our first responders. For those of you not familiar with it, I was privileged enough to deliver food for them and donate money. They used grant money to buy meals from our downtown restaurants, which were struggling, in order to feed some of our brave people at Valley Hospital and elsewhere who were fighting COVID. Now the program is shifting to using some of that money to again enrich our restaurants downtown to go and help folks who are in homeless shelters. It's a wonderful program. It's not cute. It's something we really should encourage.
Thank you. Any other rebuttals? Ms. Winograd?
Yeah. I want to address a couple things. So obviously there's a budget and there's math and there's Health Barn's revenue and the additive $4 million. Health Barn has provided a significant amount of financial relief to Ridgewood during critical times. But added to that, they've provided other relief in terms of police response. The better people eat, the less diabetes we have, the healthier the community we have, the less our kids are on their devices, the less mental health issues we have. As a member of Stigma Free, that should ring true. Health Barn offers a service, and the benefits we get are not just the benefits of Health Barn, but also cost reduction. The healthier our community is, the better it is.
Time,
Please pay attention to your time.
Yes, thank you.
Only because the program ends in 30 minutes, and I just want to make sure that you just pay close attention to the timing.
So I would like to rebut, please.
Yes,
Thank you.
You have 30 seconds.
So there seems to be some confusion on the part of 2 candidates about who the tenant is at the gatehouse at Habernickel. The tenant is Health Barn Limited Liability Company, a for-profit business that's running programs, camps for children at a profit. The Health Barn Foundation is not running out of the gatehouse. The Health Barn Foundation that did Feed the Front Lines is not the tenant in the gatehouse. It is Health Barn, LLC, a for-profit business. Now, we can all agree that, yes, getting funds and, I'm sorry, thank you.
And Mr. Van Gore, would you like to rebut? You have 30 seconds.
I'm good. I think the mayor said it right.
We can move on to the next question, which is about Ridgewood EMS. Last year, the EMS was defunded by the council. Due to pay cuts, poor hours, many EMS employees left, leaving the service short-staffed. We have a severe shortage of first responders. How will you fix this problem and strengthen the EMS to work along with the police and fire departments? And we will start with Mr. Van Gore.
Who?
Mr. Van Gore.
Oh. All right, I got to start off by just saying that the EMTs are not defunded. They've never been defunded. The one paid part-time position from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. was replaced due to multiple EMTs not showing up to work and sleeping through ambulance calls and reporting late to work. Ambulance calls were delayed, causing unacceptable response times. This is a life or death situation, and as a fire chief, I had to make the appropriate decisions. I changed the daytime ambulance response procedure to guarantee that the ambulance was staffed and able to respond right away. The volunteer ambulance EMTs were never changed. They still respond at the same time they always have, 7 at night to 6 in the morning, Monday through Saturday, and all day Sunday. The EMTs were never defunded. They'll never be defunded. Then they didn't lose any memberships. The volunteers are still strong. They're still a great member. We've been running a paid during the day since 1988, so nothing's changed.
Thank you. Mr. Weitz, would you have 1 minute to answer
Great.
the
Thanks
EMS
so
question?
much. So I had the privilege of meeting with the acting chief of EMS recently. And first of all, we've been without a chief for over 6 months. The council has not hired somebody yet, something that I would change when I get there. Also, we have cut funding from them for, we had a stipend that paid for some of their, to have a professional member there during the day. That also has been cut. I feel very strongly about making sure that our EMS, police, and fire are fully funded. And that means we need to give them the tools and the money in order to be able to serve us better. Moreover, those programs provided a wonderful training ground for people that went on to be police officers, people that went into the military, while at the same time providing a really valuable service to the village. Those volunteers worked alongside those folks who were getting the stipend and were professionals. It was great for the village. It was great for our residents, and something that if I'm there will get refunded, on day one.
Thank you. Ms. Winograd, you have a minute.
So during this campaign, I've tried to get out and have a boots-on-the-ground type approach, and I, too, went to EMS because I was concerned not only with the statements on social media, but during last year's budget, during which our taxes went up 4.3%, there was a cut to EMS, and I believe there was an addition of 2 members of the fire. I think very highly of all of them, but the problem with that was it was confusing to the public. The other problem that we have is that EMS is currently without a fire chief, and that program really benefits our community in lots of ways, but it also benefits our schools. Programs like the Tides run through there, and a lot of the kids, including friends of my son, went on to go to the military academy and use their EMS experience as leverage. Those programs have value to our community that are beyond the budget. And I'm a little worried that we've touched on this too much and morale at EMS is low. They currently don't have a chief, and I think they deserve to have an at-the-table discussion where people can clear the air and everybody can finally figure out what actually happened.
Great. So my turn?
Yes, Ms.
Oh, good.
Whitson.
Thank you. So not only will they be confused handling your tax dollars, they'll be confused with their role up here on the dais. The village council is not the hiring authority for the village of Ridgewood, so if Mr. Weitz thinks he's coming here to hire someone, he's sorely mistaken. He doesn't understand the role. This was a matter of life and death. You want an ambulance there when you need one. I received a phone call one morning from a resident who had happened to be listening to the CB or police radio, scanner radio, panicked, saying, "Are you listening to the radio? The chief is over there banging on the door trying to rouse an EMT who's sleeping on the job." This happened repeatedly. We are barred from talking about most of it because of confidential personnel matters. But this is a matter of life and death and should be taken seriously. Unfortunately, we still have a robust, fully functioning volunteer EMT program, and we're grateful for their service. But nobody should be sleeping on your dime on our time. It shouldn't be happening. Matter of life and death. An ambulance will be there when you need one. Thank you.
Thank you. Rebuttal? Anyone wish to have 30 seconds to rebut? Mr. Weitz?
Great, thanks so much. So you're right, we don't on the council hire personnel. What we do is we are the board of directors. and we hire people to run the village for us. And that CEO who answers to us is the village manager. And if there's a key position, such as the chief of EMS, that's not filled for more than 6 months, I'm going to ask some very serious questions of our CEO and of the other village employees as to why we've not filled that role. Moreover, the same time that we were cutting the stipend to EMS, the same time that we were taking resources from them, Siobhan is correct. We actually raised taxes by 4.3%. What you didn't mention is there's $2.8 million worth of emergency money we received, too, at the same time we were raising taxes.
Thank you. Any other rebuttals? Ms. Winograd?
So in my previous statement, I discussed morale. I'm somewhat taken aback that we would talk about a person who works for our village like that, use them at sport. We don't know if that incident happened. And if we did, I imagine it's a personnel issue, and there's better ways of handling it. EMS, police, and fire deserve support and discretion, and that's been lacking here. I feel very strongly that we shouldn't talk about people like that from up here, and it really reflects poorly on us if we're going to address a personnel issue as if it's a political sport.
Okay, so I'll rebut. Thank you.
Yes, you have 30 seconds.
Sure. So it's not political sport. It's a reality check. The misinformation, the lies, the constant barrage of disinformation about this topic. We're not discussing specific personnel, but we're being very honest with the public. This was a matter of life and death. When you need an ambulance, you want it to be there without delay. The result of that is that firefighters are also all certified EMTs. They have always responded to all emergency medical calls. Nothing has changed. The only thing that was eliminated is the 1 per diem EMT. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other rebuttals? We will move on to the next question, and we will start with Mr. Weitz. This question is about Ridgewood Water. What will you do to resolve the water quality issues? Why do you think it has not been addressed more quickly given the health concerns of PFAS? Thank you.
PFAS, yeah.
Do you think it is still appropriate for Ridgewood to own and operate its own water? And you have 1 minute to answer the question.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I do strongly support holding on to Ridgewood Water. If you talk to anyone in this space, we are really lucky that we own our own water facility. Once you sell it, you don't have the ability to get it back. If it was sold, it would probably go to either Suez or the new company, I think it's Viola, which is a big international conglomerate. What I like about the fact that we own Ridgewood Water is that we have the ability to go directly to Ridgewood Water with our problems, as opposed to going to a large conglomerate, which is why we need to continue to support Ridgewood Water. In terms of Ridgewood Water quality, I think we deal with many of the same issues that other communities and other places do. PFAS, which are, they're parts per trillion, or they're sometimes called forever chemicals, are essentially little pieces of plastic that is in most water. We have a problem, as does most other places, but again, it's in the trillions, and that's the same water my family drinks and I drink. The other piece with Ridgewood Water is because the water that Ridgewood Water gets is it's not from a reservoir, but it's from the ground. It tends to be very hard because there are lots of extra elements in it. There's really not much that can be done about that, but I do like the natural feel of Ridgewood Water, and I'll make sure that we continue to own Ridgewood Water going forward.
Thank you. Ms. Winograd, answer a question about the water, please.
Sure. So we've been asked this a lot during the campaign. So I too am committed to owning the water company. Water is a commodity, and we're lucky that we have the utility here. I do have some concerns as a mom. Obviously, New Jersey is a toxic state. We live in an area filled with contaminants. That's just a fault of decades of contamination. So I do have concerns, and I think what I would love to do is educate the public on what the aquifer is, how it works, and how our water has minerals because it comes from the ground up. The one problem that I have with Ridgewood Water is that the massive expenditure next door really wasn't appropriate. So while the land that is adjacent here was purchased for Ridgewood Water, that money should have been spent on improving our water quality. And we're not done spending, because when that building opens, the space here in Village Hall will vacate. So I have serious concerns about the finances regarding Ridgewood Water, and if we're going to spend $4 million during my term, it would be on improving the water quality, not building a building.
Thank you. Ms. Knudsen?
So great. So we're conflating lots of issues here, but okay, well, I'm going to try and parse this out very carefully so everyone understands. So our water quality has been improved, and we've been working on PFAS since I became mayor in 2016. We've had incredible success with that. We currently have the car treatment facility. The Twinney facility is also up and running, and the Ravine facility will be soon up and running after I worked directly to get a $2.7 million federal grant, one of the largest awards that we've ever seen in the village of Ridgewood, or actually a lot of in Bergen County. The need for the Elks Club, as the lead council member on all matters of litigation in 2016, I discovered through water department litigation, is that the Ridgewood water utility, separate from the village of Ridgewood, never paid rent for the space here. And the village of Ridgewood taxpayers were actually looking at millions of dollars in increasing area for our village operations. So separating Ridgewood Water and consolidating their operations under one roof was actually a very good financial decision, not just for Ridgewood Water, but a much better outcome for village taxpayers.
Thank you. Mr. Van Gore, would you like to answer the question about water?
I have to say I agree with Evan. We should keep the water department. It's a great utility. Rich Calby's doing an awesome job. He's added filters. He's starting to like you said, there's 2 filters online. There's another one coming up next year. He also told me that by the end of next year, there should be enough wells to stop the restrictions, the water restrictions. So I think he's doing a great job, and I think we have to definitely keep the utility.
Thank you. I'm going to start another question.
Was there
I'm
rebuttal
looking
on
at the
that,
time.
Was there rebuttal?
Unless you, it's up to you. You see, there's lots of other questions,
I-
and we can rebut.
I'm good.
We can.
Well,
I'm sorry.
I just really want to go back at that issue of the Elks Club and the purchase. Ridgewood Water actually had so many different locations. Many of those were in floodplains, and some of their equipment was actually damaged due to flooding. So consolidating under one roof at the Elks Club actually is a more efficient, better outcome. But importantly is that our equipment and our facilities, these are very complicated systems that we're working. We're looking at computer screens, monitors, where we see individual pumps all over the village of Ridgewood, and these are really critical to our infrastructure and this delivery of a safe potable water. So I think that it's really important that these are complex issues some may not understand.
Thank you. We're going to move on to another question. Relationship with your constituents. How will you engage new residents living in village accessible housing units to be welcome and to become welcomed and active members of the village? That's part one. And this is how important are conversations with the community. As a council person, how do you plan to make yourself available for dialogue?
I'm sorry,
And
I just didn't hear. You have to speak into the microphone. You
sorry.
can actually just maybe pull it down a little more in front of you. That would be helpful. But if you can repeat that.
I appreciate all your good advice. It's really excellent.
And you really have a great speaking voice, so please speak.
Speak? Thank you. How will you engage new residents living in village accessible housing units to be welcome, active members of the village? And the other, this is a similar topic, how important are conversations with the community? As a council person, how do you plan to make yourself available for dialogue? And we are starting with Ms. Vinograd at those questions. You have a minute.
I'm so excited to be going first. So one of my core skills is I'm a relationship builder. I have a lifelong history of long-standing relationships. I live in the town I grew up in, which is sometimes a little odd because you live your whole life every single day. So in terms of relationships, obviously I would do a lot of community outreach, and I would also bring the community into the housing. In terms of working with the council and the community, I would improve the website, I would increase communication, and I would address the format, right, that we're communicating. Currently, the village e-notices are what I call a scroll fest. They're scroll, 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 scroll. No matter how well they're written, they're not engaging. I would be looking to modernize our communication, make it more interesting and appealing. I would also be looking to connect the village with the community by allowing the department heads to communicate freely through that. So in terms of relationships and communications, I'm a big talker. I have lifelong relationships. Some of the people sitting in this audience have known me since I was a baby, and I think I would add a lot to that area.
Thank you. And Ms. Knudsen? You have 1 minute.
Sure. So our village website is a great tool for people who need to find information. We are a really busy village government. We have more departments than many other local municipalities, and as such, the information and the demands of our public results in a more robust village website. Our communications with residents, we're always available to residents. I have to tell you, we communicate in a variety of formats, and by email, I visit residents come here. There's a lot of communication, much more than people understand or appreciate, because they don't see the day-to-day activities and daily agendas and calendars and all of those things that we do to make our village residents feel appreciated and that their needs are addressed.
Thank you. Mr. Van Gore? You have 1
I've-
minute.
You ready?
Yes.
I have a track record of being actively involved in the community. Even if I don't agree with someone, I will still listen to them. I'm a great listener. I will always tell you I don't know everything. I always have questions, and I'll turn to Ridgewood residents. Anybody could call me at any time, call my cell phone, email me. I will always get back to you. I'm always available.
Thank you. Mr. Weitz?
Yeah, no, this is a great question, because I think, politicians and folks like that, they don't do enough listening. And that's something that if I'm on the council, I'll do a lot of listening as opposed to talking all the time. I think hybrid access plays a piece of this. Again, widens the number of people that can attend village council meetings and speak. I disagree with the mayor on this. The website is not well done. It's very difficult to navigate. On day one, I think we need to rehab that website and make it more user-friendly and make it more state-of-the-art. I really like the idea of potentially doing office hours where, if a village resident wants to come see me, I'll set up an hour or two where I'm sitting down there, and, anybody who wants to come can come, and we'll set up some coffee and do that. I do also like Siobhan's idea of encouraging and empowering village managers and village employees to speak directly with the residents. I think that's something where I've heard story after story of folks who have sent emails to the village to some of our employees, and they just haven't responded, and that's something that I don't agree with. I myself will make my email freely available to any village resident, and will promise from this dais that I will respond to those emails in a timely fashion. I think also, like Siobhan, I would bring a very different perspective as the only person with kids in the school system and the only person who commutes regularly. Thanks.
Thank you. The next question is about diversity. Since the dismantling of the Community Relations Board, how has Ridgewood met the challenges of diversity? How will it meet future challenges? And we will start with Ms. Knudsen.
So, when the former mayor actually disbanded the Community Relations Advisory Board for a variety of reasons, but I have to say that in terms of diversity, I don't know that the Community Relations Advisory Board being disbanded is an impediment to a robust conversation and a diverse population. Our village is very welcoming. We know that we had a Stop Asian Hate rally where we very much supported our residents, our fellow residents. And we do a tremendous amount of outreach, and we are a really very diverse and welcoming community. Again, the Community Relations Advisory Board served a purpose at a time, but again, the former mayor chose to disband it. He was the one who made the recommendation. If there was a need to reinstate one, it would be certainly something to have a conversation about.
Thank you. Mr. Van Gore?
I agree with the mayor. Ridgewood's a very diverse community, very opening, welcoming. They have a lot of activities downtown, Vanessa Park, for everybody, every different culture, every different religion. I think they do a very good job of it. So I would just continue with what's being done.
This is one of the reasons why I love Ridgewood the most. The fact that we are so diverse both in race, religion, gender, gender identity, it's something that I think really, really empowers Ridgewood and something we should look to grow upon. I would bring back the Community Relations Advisory Board. If there was a problem, then you fix it. But, I'm not sure, and I'll admit I'm not sure who got rid of it, but we haven't gotten it back in the last 4 years since the current council has been empowered to bring it back, and that hasn't happened. So I would look to bring that back as well, and look to see if there are other ways where we could talk to some of our older people, some of our folks in our minority communities, some of our minority religious communities, to ensure that we stay as welcoming a place as I believe we are and should be.
Thank you. Ms. Winograd, you have a minute.
Sure. So I was an active participant in Community Relations Advisory Board. I'm extremely proud of the work that we did there to combat hate, bias, and intimidation in the community. And I think we can do more. I think it was a mistake. And I want to be clear, mayors don't have the authority to do anything like that. It was the council, and you voted to disband it. Issues like pride, Stop Asian Hate, they're all great opportunities for our community. But having been on an activist side, it's a fishing expedition to find out how to access public land. It's a never-ending negotiation where some dangerous things can occur. Just recently, I sent the council an application in South Carolina of if you want to exercise your right to free speech, here's how to do it. Here are the important people to contact. We don't have that. We don't encourage that. We should be encouraging that for everybody. Every time there is a protest in town, it causes chaos and confusion, and ultimately we get it done, which is good, but we should have a program for that. I would bring back the Community Relations Advisory Board, if elected.
So I just would like to point of clarification in a rebuttal. I stated that the former mayor made a recommendation to disband, didn't do it on his own, made a recommendation. Just clarification.
Thank you. We have many, many questions that will not be asked tonight because of time. So I always suggest that you can always email your candidates and however way they want to be addressed, and they will hopefully answer your questions, and I'm sure they will. So
could I rebut
we
that
just don't have enough time. So what we do have time for are your closing remarks, which we will start with Ms. Winograd.
Sure. Again, I want to thank the League of Women Voters. I want to thank the moderator and all the people who showed up here tonight and submitted questions and the people at home. I too hope everyone listened tonight and learned a lot, and I hope you noticed the subtle differences, and at times not so subtle, between all of our platforms. My platform is about Ridgewood's future. It's about where we want to be, not about 2016 or 18. It's about where we're headed at this critical time. As a local, I'm uniquely qualified to balance both tradition and progress. I know how to balance these issues. I know how to listen. I know how to be respectful and polite in all levels of discourse. So if you want the pedestrian plaza next year, if you want to dial in via a hybrid access meeting, play pickleball with your grandmother, or play in possibly our Shedler Park, elect me. Local elections matter. They matter a lot. We've seen that over the past 4 years. So this November, I want Ridgewood to vote. I want you to remember down ballot, vote locally, and vote for me, Siobhan Cram Winograd.
Thank you. Mr. Weitz, you have one
Great.
minute for your closing.
Thank you to the League. Thank you for everyone that showed up. Thank you to fellow candidates. Democracy doesn't happen if people don't show up. And most importantly, thank you to my family for putting up with all this while I run for office. Siobhan's right. There were some real key differences discussed tonight. If you want a pedestrian plaza, if you want hybrid access for disabled and other folks, if you want Shedler finished, if you want Health Barn to stay, if you want EMS to receive their funding, if you want things like the Community Relations Advisory Board to exist, then please vote for me. Those are the differences, or at least some of the differences I think you've heard of tonight. Now, to be clear, you've heard a lot of arguments tonight, but when I get on the council, I will work with anyone and everyone to make one Ridgewood better. With that, I'm going to end where I started, which is, I'm the only candidate up here who's got a proven track record in both government and in the public sector. I will bring those skills to bear when I get to the council to make this a better village council and a better Ridgewood. Thank you again, and I ask for your vote on November 8th. Thank you.
Mr. Van Goor?
I'd also like to thank the League, everyone here, and everybody watching. The Village of Ridgewood deserves to look forward. If I am elected to council, you can count on open, honest communication. Transparency and accountability are hallmarks of our democracy, and I do not take it lightly. I will be an independent voice who will always listen with an open mind and will always make decisions that are in the best public interest. I am personally invested in the future of the village. The decisions we make will affect me personally as I am a longtime resident. We have a list of priorities, and with so many new members on the council, now is the time to elect 2 candidates who know the system, understand the complexity of the decision in front of us, and have the energy to keep up. As a retired fire chief, I understand the accountability that public institutions should show their communities. Thank you. I really appreciate your time tonight. I am asking for your support and your vote for Van Gore and Knudsen.
Thank you. Ms. Knudsen?
Great. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Pay attention, Ridgewood. This is an important election. 2 candidates are running up here on platforms of things that have already been done, are nearing completion, or should never happen. The idea of bringing back a pedestrian plaza will undoubtedly put shop owners out of business. Don't let that happen. I'm excited, though, tonight because this debate confirmed that the Village of Ridgewood is running well and efficiently, something I am proud of. Let's remember September 30th, 2015, when nearly 1,000 residents descended on Village Hall to fight against the overdevelopment of Ridgewood. I worked hard to negotiate settlements and mitigate the impact on our schools, our services, and our infrastructure. Don't let that happen again. Ridgewood continues to be a target for developers. It is happening now. Don't think it's over. It's not. I know they call me. I refuse to do their bidding. They only need 1 council member elected up here to succeed to do more damage to Ridgewood. Instead of voting for special interest and self-interest, vote to protect your interest and the future of Ridgewood. Jim and I will protect both. Vote Knudsen and Van Gore. VoteRidgewood.com.
Thank you. Thank you all for your time and efforts this evening, all the candidates. And now I'm turning the meeting over to Ann.
I would like to extend thanks to the candidates, the league moderator, the timers, and the volunteers. Thank you to the audience for attending and being active participants in the democratic process. Remember to make your vote count by voting early, by mail, or at the polls on November 8th. This debate was recorded by the League and can be seen on YouTube, Village of Ridgewood. However, though we encourage you to share the link, we remind you that the recording can only be shared in its entirety. It cannot be downloaded, and no footage may be edited. League membership forms are available on the back table, and thank you all, and thank you for those at home. Thank you again. Have a great night.